Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see lots of familiar names on the screens and lots of familiar faces. So thank you for joining us. This is our second webinar for today in our series on rural teacher grow your own programs. And I'm very happy to introduce to you a distinguished panel of speakers today. And I'll start with those introductions. From representing West Texas A&M, we have Dr. Janet Hindman, who is the Director of Strategic Initiatives, Associate Professor of Education in the College of Education and Social Science. And with Dr. Hindman is Mr. Phil Guerra, who is an Assistant Superintendent of Personnel at Dumas ISD. So you guys give us a wave. This is who we are. All right, excellent. From representing Texas A&M University, Dr. Valerie Hill Jackson. Dr. Jackson is the Assistant Dean of Teacher Preparation and Partnership in the Department of Teaching and Learning and Culture in the College of Education and Human Development. She's joined by Dr. Barbara Ibarra, Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning in Bryan ISD. So if you guys will give us a wave. There we go. And then from Stephen F. Austin State University, Dr. Christina Sinclair, who is the Associate Dean of Assessment and Accountability in the College of Education. So Dr. Sinclair, there we go. All right. We should have had you guys give your school signs or something. But so the way we'll proceed here is we have a series of questions for the panel. And for audience members, if you have a question while the panelists are speaking, you can enter your question into the chat, which is located at the bottom of your screen in a bar that pops up as you scroll over it. If you don't want to put your question into a chat, we'll have time at the end of our panel discussion for some questions from the audience. So again, thank you for joining us, and we're ready to get started. So our first question for the panelists is, how did you make the selection of students and the districts with whom you'd partner for this grant? So let's start with Janet.
Hi, I'm also the department head of education here at West Texas A&M. So thank you. That's another job that I've had, Dr. Hammond. But thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. And my esteemed colleagues and I are just delighted to be here with you today. Actually, I was not seeking Title II or Cycle 2 of this grant, but I'm good friends with the executive director at Region 16 Education Service Center. Used to work there. And so he called and said there were 7 districts within our region that were interested in pursuing one of the pathways. So I was honored to go and speak with them. My friend Phil and others were there at that meeting. And of the 7 districts, 6 of the rural school districts decided to partner with us in our Grow Your Own initiative. So Phil is representing one of our primary partners in this initiative. We were able to select, our goal was to select 20 candidates. Fortunately or unfortunately, we were not successful in gaining 20, but we did identify 9 candidates. So we have 8 of our candidates placed in one of our districts and 1 candidate placed in Phil's district. So we're very delighted to partner along with them. We've got some incredible districts and also some incredible students who are working in this clinical teaching experience. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dr. Jackson, how did you all make the selection of your students for this grant and then to partner with Bryan?
Howdy, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with my partner, Dr. Ibarra from Bryan ISD. And for us, it was a real no-brainer. There are 11 school districts in the Brazos Valley that surround Texas A&M University and College Station. And Bryan ISD is the largest, and they are the folks with whom we do most of our work. We have Aggies in early field experiences and clinical experiences. We didn't give it a second thought. They were our first choice. So much great work with Bryan ISD. I think it's interesting to note that 2/3 of their faculty are also Aggie. So it's a family. I mean, we're just a big sort of a school-university partnership, and it just made absolute sense. I'm happy to report that our target was to identify 10 students in a high needs area. We looked at the high need, and that was bilingual education. So we went to our bilingual education program, and we were able to identify, I believe it's 7 of our students of the 11. So we actually went above our target. And then the other students come from our EC through 6 generalist program, but they also are getting an ESL. It's not quite a certification, but sort of a recognition. So we're really excited. We shot for 10, and we actually have 11. One of the things that I'm most proud of, that I don't think a lot of programs actually spend the time or energy with, we actually came together as a team, the school district leaders, as well as university faculty, and we put together a 3-step recruiting process, right? So we actually had our heads down, and we made sure that we had folks who are contributing from the school district as well as within the university. And inwardly, we identified a few GAs to actually do the work and go out and get the message done. And then a part of that process included an online application, also interview process, and our Bryan ISD folks, they were in charge of selecting these future teachers for their district because they're going to their district. It made sense that they would handle that part of the 3-part application process. So for us, looking at our needs inwardly, looking also at Bryan ISD's needs as well. So we wanted to absolutely ensure that there was mutuality in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Dr. Ibarra, would you mind commenting about the interview process and how you worked with Texas A&M?
Absolutely. Dr. Hill-Jackson, I couldn't emphasize more how much this has been a partnership between our 2 entities. From planning to execution, we have been at the table with them throughout the process. You know, whenever you do something that's new and it's a change initiative, you do with people, not to them. And I can say that that's why this is working here, specifically the interview process. After A&M had gone through a series of iterations of looking at applicants and then zeroing in on their strengths and the propensity for them to stay in the district beyond the initial induction year, but to really commit to the district for 3 subsequent years. Then Bryan ISD took those applicants, and I had the principals who would be receiving these individual teachers as Aggie term residents. They were the ones who sat in on the interview along with some district staff members, including the Director of Bilingual Education and the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. So I assembled that team to work with A&M and to interview these Aggie term residents, and truly they were outstanding, phenomenal applicants.
Wonderful. It sounds like a great partnership. Dr. Hinman, I want to circle back to you. You mentioned how the districts sought you out.
Yes.
Would you mind? And that's a great feeling, I know. Would you mind? How did you select the 9 students that ended up in this current program?
Well, thank you very much. Well, when I first met with the 7 districts that expressed an interest in pursuing a pathway, they all had maybe 2 or 3 of their paraprofessionals in mind that they wanted to, you know, they were homegrown people anyway. They wanted to stay within their communities. And so we went through a selection process very similar to what was just recently discussed. And yet we found that examining many of these potential candidates, transcripts or lack thereof, there were some that were just too far out. They might be perfectly suited for the next cycle, but for this very short timeline, it was very difficult to find people that could fulfill all of the requirements in time. And so in selecting our own, we opened it up to our Department of Education, our own students, and many of them applied. 9 of them were the ones that were selected. And again, they are very high quality people. One of the big differences in our program, by the time that our candidates begin their clinical teaching experience, they are both course and test complete. With the shortened timeline, that was not possible for these 9. So many of these students are also still taking classes, online classes, night classes, things of that nature, but they all will be test complete by December, and many of them will be course complete by December as well. So these are high functioning, high performance individuals to be able to tackle all of that work in one semester. So we're very proud of the work that they've done so far.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Dr. Sinclair, can you address how you selected students for the program to work in Martinville, and how did you pick Martinville, or did Martinville pick you?
A little bit like A&M and Brian, it was very much a natural fit. But to give a little bit of context, Nacogdoches is deep East Texas, and we are surrounded by numerous very small rural districts. And we, as a whole ed prep program, try to stay in strong communication and partnership with them. And as I came across this grant, saw it as a real opportunity to meet that need, particularly out in deep East Texas. And so the relationship with Martinsville works nicely, partly because Martinsville is only 10 miles from our campus. And so in our partnership, the way this has worked out, the students are actually still taking coursework in that first semester. And so it's a drivable distance and made it doable. The principal was really on board and willing to meet and connect. So lots of that made it easy. As far as trying to identify students, we let Martinsville drive the bus on that. So tried to listen to their high needs areas. And really the foundation of the grant for me came from something that I heard the principal say just in conversation one day of, they often will have as few as 1 to 0 qualified people apply for a teaching position. And so this grant, I just thought we've got to help one another here. And so the principal at the middle school, high school is the one I worked with close, and he identified teaching areas that he felt like he needed in the coming year. And then I brought that back to our educator professional council, made that announcement a couple of times, and that group has representation from all of our certification areas. And then I simultaneously had my office look up students that would be eligible as far as the time frame goes, because it has to be like a whole year out. And then we generated a list to each of the certification areas that we offer, and let the programs take a look, and then actually let the programs drive who they were selecting to let my office know to then connect back to Martinsville. And so in round 1, I only had 2 clinical teachers, and then this second round, we've got 4. And we've had areas represented that were ag, English, and physical education.
Great, great. That's great. Those are good stories. And I know the ag teachers are in as high demand as the bilingual teachers, so that's an interesting dynamic.
Yes.
Question for the districts, for Mr. Guerra and Dr. Ibarra. What changes will the district have to make to participate in this Grow Your Own grant?
Well, I think for us, the biggest thing is just getting acclimated to the year-round assignment that they have for us. But with that being said, though, we just feel like it's a great benefit for us simply because we're in a tough location. We're 45 miles north of Amarillo, which is almost not in Texas for those of you that don't know. But we're way up here. And so we compete with Amarillo and Canyon, where West Texas A&M is just right there located. So it's extremely difficult sometimes for us to recruit teachers for this area. So a minute ago, someone said that, they may post a job and have 0 to 3 applicants. We deal with the same thing. So for us, this is a no-brainer for us as well. If we could have more, we would definitely house more. But unfortunately, we were just able to get the one. And again, a lot of that has to do with location. It has not to do with our school district. It's just because we're located where we are. it's a tough sell sometimes to get somebody out here. So if we can get one now, we'll take one. And if we can get 5 in the future, then we'll take 5.
Thank you.
For Bryan ISD, in terms of what we had to change internally, I echo Mr. Guerrero's comment that, we just need to make sure that we were structuring the support network to mirror the grant application that Dr. Hill Jackson and the team put together, that there's quality mentoring, there's quality partnerships and ongoing communication with our Aggie term residents. We have the benefit of geographic proximity to A&M. And so we do benefit from that in terms of the students being able to attend classes on Fridays at A&M and then being here Monday through Thursday working in our classrooms. However, I will say we struggle with teacher turnover like you wouldn't believe. And we also struggle with finding qualified applicants, in particular in high needs areas, special education. I mean, you name it, we've got that same problem. We serve a very high poverty district with a lot of diversity, much different from our surrounding areas. And so it can be a challenge to recruit teachers, but the way I love about this program is it really focuses on the retention of the teachers. And the way in which it's designed is that they get a year with us, something we've never done, a full year before they graduate. And then they are signing on essentially for 3 subsequent years of employment with Bryan ISD. We are working hard to reduce our teacher turnover rate and increase our certifications for bilingual education. We've tried stipends. Right now we have a $6,000 stipend for bilingual teachers, and we still file an exception and waiver. So it's incredible the demand for it and the population's need for it and the scarcity of that resource. So internally, just making sure that whatever we put in place, we're able to attract the new teachers to stay in the district. That's our biggest area of focus. Once they get in here, how do we keep them?
Thank you.
Any of our panelists, would you like to follow up on the comments from the district?
Well, we really appreciate our partners, as we've already mentioned. And speaking of Dumas, it's an incredible district. Even though it is 45 miles from Amarillo, it's closer to the mountains, Phil. So it's a good thing.
That is true.
But we really appreciate the flexibility of the district, because the candidate that is placed in Dumas is a very special candidate because she has 2 certification areas. And one of those is in science and the other is in special ed. And because of the great leadership there at that district, we were able to simultaneously place that candidate half a day in one certification area and half a day in the other. And so that student basically has the benefit of 2 cooperating teachers, as well as working with the students in those particular areas. So we're really excited about that opportunity. I want to thank you, Phil, for that.
Thank you.
I wish there were a way that we could kind of highlight all these hero teachers new teachers who've come into this program and made a commitment. That would be, maybe we can figure out a way to do that here. I'd like to circle back to the universities here for just a question here. And some of this has been alluded to already, but if we could have some greater detail around this question. Based on the grant requirements, one of which was the year-long student teaching, what changes did you have to make to your program, and how did you go about making them? So what changes did you make to the program, and how did you go about making them? Let's start with West Texas A&M.
Thank you, Dr. Hammond. As I've already mentioned, our students are not yet course or test complete. And so we had to work with our director of our teacher prep program to make sure, and also our faculty, to make sure that the courses that they needed were offered in a variety of ways, either online or at night. There were some that were hybrid classes, but we were able to work with all of those different stakeholders to make sure that the candidates were able to take the classes that they need. And they are doing quite well. We're staying on top of their progression throughout the program and making sure that, you know, they have a balance of the work that they're doing in the districts, plus also the work that they're doing for WT. So it's been indeed a balancing act for these candidates, and we're trying to support them in any way that we can.
Excellent. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, as much as possible, we've tried to not disrupt the students' normal sort of year-long uh, undergraduate experience. So in the fall, our students have senior methods that continues. So this is the last semester of their coursework, and then we've also ensured that they'll continue with their cooperating teacher slash mentor in the spring. But I really want to caution everyone that if we do this kind of work with the expectation that it's just longer, then we may be missing the mark. For us, this really was about giving our students a kind of induction process while we try to make sure that their normal schedule wasn't all that much disrupted. We didn't want to give them added experiences. We wanted to give them more in-depth experiences. So for our teacher preparation program in general, I don't think a lot of the programs, we're quite large. We place nearly 300 students per semester, you can imagine, in our program. So we somewhat treated this program almost like a boutique program. So we're trying to see how it works. We're keeping it quite insular, in a way sort of protecting our students. But as I go back to the comment I made about induction, they're getting added layers of support. For example, their mentors go through 1.5 days of training during the summer so that they understand sort of the best practices in mentoring, and they understand how to sort of guide performance management. This spring, our students are meeting a few times with me, getting additional support in terms of what it means to be a teacher who is getting professional development, extra professional development when you're talking about student success, but also extra PD when it comes to one's own sort of emotional success, because our teachers are going to go through a very difficult time this semester going through this big change. And we want to make sure that we sort of give them this web of support. In addition, we've matched these new residents with community mentors, because this is an induction program. We want these 11 residents to be committed to the profession, but also committed to Bryan ISD. So we've identified community mentors, and these are folks who are former teachers and current attorneys who are opening up their lives and their homes and their community and being that additional layer of support for the students. So in terms of what's changed in our program, our students are getting this sort of boutique experience embedded into the general program, but with that added layer of support. But I hope they are feeling, our residents are feeling, that they're not getting sort of extra assignments, but they're getting extra support.
Those are great. Those are great things. Those are great changes. Dr. Sinclair, how did Stephen F. Austin make changes to their program based on the grant requirements?
Initially, I ended up meeting with the field experience professors who were doing that in what I call our traditional program before we had the grant going, to talk to them about what this might look like. And we collaborated in a way that it would allow them to, a little bit like we've heard from the other programs, continue to do what they need to do as far as courses go. But then I like the notion of a boutique program. I've been calling it kind of a ramped up addition. So the students had this opportunity, and again, I like to use the term challenge by choice. The students were choosing to be challenged a little further with this extra layer of support. And so the layers of support on top of what were already there included as many as 50 extra field experience hours, and then that extra layer of support from the cooperating teacher and the field observation or the field supervisor with those 6 observations. Again, that was a real ramped up version from what they were getting prior to that, and then having those 2 people and layers of support relative to weekly reflections that were part of the grant. And so other things that happened there were, I had these Grow Your Own candidates actually connecting with a group of high school students at Martinsville High School who are taking a class who had identified as wanting to be a teacher. And so we had some partnership going on there as well, and interaction that was built in as part of the grant. And so I think those are things I would echo that several people have said, but it was several more layers of support that were refreshing to everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Just a quick question. I'm anticipating maybe some of the things that our other university audience members might be asking. So, of course, Brian is right there next to the university in Martinsville. As Dr. Sinclair mentioned, is only 9 miles away. But West Texas A&M is kind of spread out
Yes.
all over the Panhandle there, and I encourage you to get out your Google map and find Dublin. So you're partnered with 7 different districts, I believe you said earlier. Where were your
Six, Dr. Hammond. 7 initially met with me at Region 16, but 6 decided to sign on.
So where are your university supervisors coming from? How are you managing that?
Well, our university field supervisors we have several of them. We have retired superintendents, retired principals, retired teachers of the year. We have one of our field supervisors we have specifically touted as our Grow Your Own university field supervisor. And she's an incredible person with extensive experience at all levels. And she will be working with our 9 candidates in our 2 different districts. And yes, we do have large geography here in the Texas Panhandle. The little part that sticks up, that's all of us at Region 16. And so we have all the way from Dumas, which is in the top quadrant of the Panhandle, all the way to Canyon, which is our other district, and many other districts in between, from very, very small districts to Canyon being the largest of the 6 school districts.
Thank you. So just to recap, so some of the changes that were required or embraced, certainly a much more enhanced induction process aimed at supporting the teacher candidate within the partner district. I heard folks talk about offering courses online in ways that they hadn't perhaps in the past, accommodating an existing kind of rotation of courses and schedules, which is made complicated by the fact that the grant, the time for the grant is only 1 year. So that makes it a little more complicated for us. The year-long student teaching, and of course, especially for our friends in West Texas, a lot more driving. From the district perspective, I've got a question again for Mr. Guerra and Dr. Ibarra. Assuming a positive outcome from everything that is going on right now, what are your next steps with your university partner that you'd like to see come out of this grant?
I think the biggest thing for us would be the number of students that we could house. You know, I say this lightly, but there's a lot of truth behind it. I would take as many of the Grow Your Own teachers that we could possibly get simply to fill those hard to fill areas. You know, we're no different than anywhere else. Bilingual is a critical area for us. We have to file the waiver every year just as well. You know, we're 79% Hispanic here in my community and or in our school district, and we can't find enough bilingual staff. But that also doesn't take care of your sciences, your maths, your CTE courses now that are out there gaining popularity again. So there's an abundance of courses out there that we're still struggling to fill, just like a lot of other communities are. But my biggest thing that is, if I could have as many as they would give me, we would probably house those here in Dumas ISD.
I would agree with that completely. In fact, I was going to email Dr. Hill Jackson and ask her when we were applying for cycle 3, because let's get this moving. I'm ready. We too would house as many as we possibly can. And in fact, that's why we upped the number. When Dr. Hill Jackson and I originally visited, we were targeting 10 students. And as we did the interviews, they were so outstanding. We told her, is there any way we could keep more? Because we would like all of them to continue in this program. They're they're that needed and sought after, and they performed that well in the interview. And that's, I'm sure, what everyone else here has experienced and echoed, but I would continue to want to partner and apply for Cycle 3. We've had to seek under District of Innovation alternative certification opportunities for CTE courses. So we don't require certifications for those any longer, but it might be interesting to see how that mirrors and can be blended into a Cycle 3 grant. We did the same thing for pre-K teachers with the onset full-day pre-K statewide and the number of qualifying students in Bryan ISD. We added a grade level over the summer of about 800 or 900 students that we were anticipating. So there's a lot to that and a high demand for those early childhood educators, some of which are in licensed daycare and pre-K or preschool facilities and who have college degrees but lack the certification. So just looking at how we might partner, we did DOI, but it might be interesting to see how we might be able to blend those two things together.
Dr. Hammond, may I add a comment to their comments?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I wanted to mention partners also that we have developed with our 4 feeder community colleges. We had many meetings with them as we were trying to get Cycle 2 up and running, and just to give them the heads up, because many of their students transferring in might be possible candidates for Cycle 3 should we decide to pursue Cycle 3. So I think our community college partners are also very important for this process, and I would encourage our listeners to consider reaching out to community partners that might be close to them in proximity, because there's a wealth of candidates who really want to get a 4-year degree. They do want to teach. Many of our students want to teach in small rural schools, and that would help both of our colleagues who are representing ISDs today.
Great. That's great advice. Great advice. So for those of us outside of, or for those of us at the university and the district as well, certainly I'm hearing that you definitely want this to continue, and not only continue, but we want it to get bigger. So I don't know about the rest of the folks in the universities here, but it's wonderful to be wanted, and that's not always the case. And so this is music right now.
Can I add a little something? One of the things you asked a minute ago were who was doing the field supervision, and to me, an unexpected kind of nice little benefit is with my field supervisors anyway, it's each one of them are actually faculty. So it's actually opened up additional ways for faculty to be in the schools and in field settings with students. And so it's expanded our partnerships with our programs that are inside the college and outside the college, and to get those faculty from the content area involved. And so it's expanding relationships that way as well.
Great, thank you.
That's a great comment. That's great. So definitely wanted to continue to get bigger. I also hear our district friends say, we want to establish this pipeline. We don't want this to stop.
Yeah.
We want it to continue and have a steady supply of teachers. I think there's 2 other interesting things I want to point out. One is that this work engaged the university in looking at the needs of the districts. And that's not typically the case, but when you partner with your district folks, they have certain needs, and the fact that the university is now trying to address that is a pretty step forward. And then I guess the other thing that Janet mentioned here is there are individuals who may not be able to come through a traditional program, and so working with community college institutions and finding alternative pathways for individuals to come in through a university preparation program is something that we could consider doing as well. Okay, a question here for universities here. What impact has this Grow Your Own grant had on the rest of your teacher preparation program? We've heard a little bit from folks about that, but let's kind of go back and have have a recap of that. So we'll start with you, Janet. What impact has the Grow Your Own grant had on the rest of the program at large?
Well, I think truly those methods, faculty that were teaching in a variety of options, whether it be face-to-face, a hybrid, or online, or at night, we found that there was one particular area that we were not yet offering online. So we've been taking some steps to make sure that we can correct that issue. So any future Grow Your Own candidates would be able to take all of the classes, much like my colleague at A&M has already said, to not disrupt their program, but to help them to continue seamlessly in their program. One other comment I might add, also from the district perspective, principals are telling us that they are really enjoying having a longer look at these candidates, because it is an ongoing process, and using a gradual release model for the 6 required observations. 2 of those could actually be just an observation in making those students feel comfortable, et cetera, and the cooperating teacher partnership as well. So I think the gradual release model has helped, because it is a 28-week clinical teaching experience. So it alters a little bit from the 14-week that many of our candidates experience. And so we're looking forward to see the types of impact, because of the relationships that our candidates are building with the students in the classroom, cooperating teachers, campus principals, and other leadership within the district. It'll be interesting to see how that impact makes a difference in these kids' lives.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Hill-Jackson?
Yes, I'm really doing my best to protect my colleagues in other programs. We don't want to disrupt sort of the everyday goings on with the programs. We are trying to keep it somewhat insular. I have intentionally called in and pulled in certain faculty and staff members to be a part of the leadership team so that they can see what's going on. But as we move forward with cycle 3 or cycle 5 in the future, I'm really interested in a couple of things. First of all, sustainability. We really want to make sure that we do this program well in partnership with Bryan ISD leadership, who has been at the table every step of the way. We want to make sure that we look up, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and this model is sustainable. So, so right now, the goal is to keep our head down, stay really focused on this very sort of small boutique program, and then look at issues of sustainability and scalability as well. So we want to take it bigger, and we want it to last. So I think if I can work with the district to make sure that we have certain successes and we meet certain benchmarks, when we're able to take this program and make it larger, and so it can be a part of other programs as well, I think I'll have more of a buy-in from the faculty and staff. So our goal is really to do this work on a smaller level, make sure we meet our marks, and then take it back so that we can have this residency model approach to other programs as well.
And I think I'll try to add or re-emphasize something I did just a minute ago, but I think this is a positive change, or a way that it's affected our ed prep program, is again, ag and English in particular are outside of our college. And so by engaging those programs with their own students out in these field experiences, I think that's been a nice positive effect. And we've been very small with it so far. I've started out leading it as we're looking at going into the 3rd cycle. We're looking to, my team is growing the level of support because of some initial good, they can see, I think faculty and department chairs are seeing good for the district as well as our students. And so my department chair, that's middle level grades and elementary, is looking at joining in, and we're hoping to expand the number of districts we're partnering with across more levels, because so far we've just been working with middle and are actually all level and secondary.
Okay, wonderful. So just to recap again for those who are listening here, a lot of magic happens when we start working with these partners. So we hear about opportunities to expand the university's program, a greater sense of community engagement, seeing a value in the year-long student teaching experience, especially from the district's perspective, A&M's perspective on staying small and boutique while looking to the future and seeing how this stuff really is doing some good things. How can we make it work in a larger context? And then, and this one is one that I love because it's not always easy to find. Dr. Sinclair mentioned greater collaboration across the institution with your colleagues who have involvement in teacher preparation, but oftentimes are kind of working in silos. So those are excellent impacts. I'd like to ask one last question of Mr. Guerin and Dr. Ybarra, and it's a money question. Get ready. Okay. So the $15,000 stipend, which we all were able to give to the teacher candidates, and I guess I should have asked questions about how everybody did that, but maybe I will if we have time. The $15,000 stipend was a great incentive for teacher candidates to begin to participate in this program. From the district perspective, what thoughts have you given to sustaining the grant program after the end of a funding cycle?
Well, that's a tough one to answer right there, but the optimal answer is to say, I wish we could sustain it, but I don't know how we're going to be able to do that, if the grant runs out. The way it's designed right now is actually feasible. It's just going to be a matter of whether the district's willing to take that on or not. For me, it's easy for me in my department to say that I think it's something that we need to do simply because it continuously puts teachers in our classrooms. It reduces the number of teachers we have to recruit when we know we can have somebody for the next 3 years after the program is completed. So from a perspective, if you look at it from that standpoint, I think that's a win-win situation for us. But again, it all comes back down to that money value. And is it going to be there for us, not only through the grant, but is it going to be there for us in general, for us to carry something like this on? That would be the big question. And I wished I could tell you today that's not going to be a problem for doing this ISD. We're going to do this whether, the grant money's there or not, but I just don't know that we can do that.
Sure. I know.
One of the things that's a real positive related to that is that TEA has now let go of, or they will let a clinical teacher have an aide position. And so to me, that would be the future if the grant runs out, to come into some kind of a collaboration with the district where the clinical teacher would have a role as an aide for half the day, and then half the day they're doing their clinical teaching to put together that year-long piece to come up with the finances. It's just a thought.
I know this. I have a student teacher from Colorado right now, because I do go to Colorado and recruit as well, simply because we're not that far from there, and the state of Texas pays considerably more than Colorado. But her particular university actually allows her to substitute while she's student teaching if it happens to be one of those days where the campus actually has to have somebody substitute. Then we are allowed to pay them for that day that they do go fill in for a class. We're just asked not to take advantage of it, which makes sense as well.
So for Bryan ISD and working with A&M, I'd like to echo Dr. Sinclair's statement that looking at them being potentially aides in the classroom or paraprofessionals, that's certainly feasible given that the vast majority, nearly all of our schools are Title I. So they have money for intervention and in-class support and support structures for that. So that's a viable funding source. I think one of the hurdles that ISDs face comes down to the contract and commitment. We really struggled with this during the grant application period. I can't give one teacher in one room one kind of a contract and another teacher in another room a different duration for a contract when they're doing the same job. So it becomes a legal issue through our legal team that I can't extend 3-year contracts. And so that becomes a problem. If we're going to invest in the the sustainability option, I like the idea of instructional aides. We did too look at substituting. We actually outsourced our substitutes to an outside company, ESS. And so they have a stipulation in their contract that they cannot be employed with us and be a substitute. So that excludes them from that opportunity. But we are able to employ them with tutors or as a tutor after school and pay them an hourly rate for that. But that won't suffice for the type of stipending they're needing in order for this to sustain them. So I think the aide is the best option, but it would have to be a different type of aide, a student teaching aide. And so we'd have to probably create a new job description, since there would have to be embedded release time for them to attend classes, which we could certainly do, so long as the room wasn't, and the aide position wasn't tied to anything regarding special education and compensatory services. So we'll have to look at that. But I think that is the most viable option. It can be a struggle to come up with dollars in education, and principals can prioritize it. And a lot of them after this moment, I think, would.
Great, especially after the positive experience.
Exactly.
Heard that they had. Our previous speaker, Dr. Gagnon, spoke about some the ESSA Title II funding that probably wouldn't hurt to have a look for us to dig into and see about some interesting or creative ways that district monies could be used to support somebody while they are student teaching and beyond even aides and subs.
House Bill 3 might be another option also, Dr. Hammond.
House Bill 3 may have some language in there, yes. It's pretty long, 300 pages. Golly. It's a big read.
Most of it, though, applies to educators that are employed, and so they'd have to be employed to partake.
Right. That's right. We have a question here. Let's see. A question from one of our participants who I think we may have addressed. Do the student teachers receive a stipend for the 28 weeks for the year-long student teaching? Anybody want to take that? Everybody's nodding, so I guess. Anybody want to?
I'll jump in there if you don't mind. We wanted to make sure that we tie the stipend to certain milestones for our students. So our stipends are released once a month for our students. And we've actually talked as a leadership team with the district and the faculty and staff that we wanted to hold back a certain amount of the stipend to ensure that the student first had a successful academic year, but second, to make sure that they would sign the 3-year commitment contract. And so that last stipend, about $5,000, will be released late April, early May.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, ours was similar in that it was set up on a monthly basis, and they did need to be meeting certain criteria to ensure that they would get that monthly check. And I was watching that, and they were set up on a contract system here at the university.
Same here.
Well, for us in working with our districts, the best approach for us as well was to divide that $15,000 by $5,000 per semester, and it's paid incrementally according to the work that they do each month. That worked in really wonderfully with the districts and the way the districts pay their teachers. And then ultimately, when they sign a contract with the district, they get the incentive of a $5,000 signing bonus. So we took the $15,000 and split it out by semester for our candidates.
Interesting. Unfortunately, they didn't give us a place in the grant to write too much about that. It's a very interesting approach you guys have taken. We're just about down to 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure we open it up to the folks in the audience with questions. While we're waiting for those to come in, I don't know if folks were aware, but the Cycle 3 was released. I believe it was Monday, maybe. Yeah, because it was supposed to be Friday. It ended up on Monday. And I don't know, did any of you have trouble downloading the application? We got an error message when we were downloading on both Macs and PCs. So I have a question a question into our friends at TEA about that.
Right.
Anybody else have any trouble with that?
I thought I looked yesterday and didn't see it on the drawdown menu. I've got to look back. I thought, wow, they've taken down the old one finally. Maybe they're going to reload the new one, but so I'll have to revisit.
It's there now, but we had trouble getting the grant open. We've got a comment here, or it's not a question, just a comment. This is from our national level expert here, guys. So make sure you pat yourself on the back. But, these are great examples and thoughtful collaboration. So I would agree. I would very much agree. So thank you, Dr. Gagnon. So I recognize some names here from around local districts here. I won't call you out here, but if you're representing, what's that?
I said they're lining up.
That's right. Well, I hope they are. That's the whole point of this. So if you're a district who are interested to partner and apply for these grants, there's a couple of different pathways. One is through the university, which is a pathway 3, but there's also pathway 2s, also requiring partnership with an institution of higher education. Okay, I see somebody in the queue here. Mr. Harvey from Fayetteville. Excellent. Yes, sir. We will count you in. It's wonderful. We've participated in both cycles, and it's just plain fun to work with the school districts that are in this close a manner. So if you're a university and you're having a question about this, I promise you it's great work. Some of the best I think I've done over my whole time in the career.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
One of the things I think has been good for our district and for our community has been the very purposeful publications surrounding this partnership. It's not a small thing, and it's been done very publicly, very overtly. And so I think that drums up excitement and potential subsequent interest for other people who are in the program to want and to ask for another opportunity. When do I get my turn to do that? We've had a lot of media coverage from it. Most recently, one of our Aggie term residents was in the paper. They did a media story on him teaching in one of our classrooms. We've had big signing events. We've had all sorts of very purposeful and strategic publications surrounding this partnership to ensure that it makes not only a big splash, but it has the interest for sustainability moving forward. And so if you're considering it, don't do it small, make it out loud, because that also drums up interest in education. And I think that's also part of it.
Thank you, Barbara. You know, we got together and Bryan ISD put on the most beautiful signing event. Our 11 residents each were given these blue jackets. We had a beautiful signing ceremony, just an hour long, so that they understood that the district and Texas A&M University has their back. And so we all showed up and we all showed out, and it was a great evening. If you would like to see the pictures from the signing event, please go to aggieterm.tamu.edu. You can see videos from 2 special events we did together, Dr. Ibarra. We had the signing event in April, and then we had a breakfast orientation this August, a nice sort of launch to the program for the academic year. So thank you for that. Yeah, they've really rolled out the red carpet for these residents, and it's been a very special welcome. Thank you.
And Valerie's already planned the big contract signing event in April, which is the big moment, right? So we're looking forward to that.
Well, we'll just have to get together next year and do this again.
Looking forward to it. Thanks to everybody, and best of luck in cycle 3.
I'm not seeing any questions from the audience. That just goes to show we're great teachers and we answered all the questions. Or they're recording the webinar. Maybe that's it. Let's see. So Robert has put a link in the chat for everybody for our September 24th next two webinars. In that webinar, in the next week, we'll visit a little bit about Texas Tech's approach to this, and also some tips for applying for the grant. There's just, especially for folks who have not applied before, there's just some things to know, and maybe some lessons learned that we can share. And so if those of you guys who have already been through this want to join and offer your version of how to be successful, everybody's going to benefit.
Thank you.
Also a note here, if you've already registered, there's no need to register again. We'll send a Zoom link when we're ready. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a lot of fun. It's been nice to be in the middle of the big Brady Bunch here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to
Bye-bye.
meet you.
Bye.
Bye.